Welcome to Behind the Smile, the podcast that goes deep behind the everyday smiles of people just like you with real life stories that are hidden behind the smiles that we carry. I'm your host, Takiya LaShawn, and on this episode, we're going to visit this smile today. If you take a look at the inset of the picture that I've got there, I picked this picture in particular today. It's actually one of my absolute favorite photos of myself. I have several series of them where I was laughing. I was caught mid laugh, and I'm not quite sure what I was laughing at, but it was hysterical to the point that my nose was scrunched up and my eyes were shut tight, and you could just tell I had a really good belly laugh. And so I chose this photo today because I want to talk about the woman behind this smile on that day in particular. I'm not going to always remember exactly the day and the time or the month and the year, more than likely, yes, but the month, probably not in particular. But in this one here, I specifically recall it was May of 2023. And I can tell you, while I was dressed up, I was dolled up, I had this beautiful, beautiful turquoise chiffon dress on. I don't know if any of you, well, I'm sure some of you have, many of you probably have, but I'm a huge fan of Emily in Paris. And there was an episode in the first season where she wore this red chiffon type of cocktail dress. And it was just absolutely stunning. And I remember thinking, I have got to find me something like that. And I guess about, a few months later, I actually walked into this boutique, and lo and behold, there was this dress, an exact replica of it. I don't know the design. I'm sure the designer was pretty high end. But I walk in this boutique in downtown Knoxville, and there's this exact replica of it. They didn't have the red, but they had it in hot pink and this turquoise teal color, and I bought them both. I bought them both, and I took them home and I shoved them in my closet, and I was like, I'm gonna find an event or somewhere to go to wear this dress. And it wasn't until later the next year, the following year, I got it in 2022. It wasn't until May of 2023 that I actually got the opportunity to wear this dress. And so I'm wearing it in that photo. But what stands out and what's so significant about it is, while I bought the dress with expectation or hope to wearing it to some nice cocktail event or a fashion event or something like that, I actually pulled that dress out of my closet as a means to pull myself out of a spiral into a deep depression. I just was going through a very rough time. I had just come out of a really positive time, and things were really rolling in a great direction for me. And I got a business contract. I'd actually got a business contract. I had linked up with someone that I thought was going to be great for my portfolio as me being a business coach and consultant and expanding my brand. And this individual had a failing business. And so we connected in the sense of, hey, I can come aboard and I can not only revive this brand, but I can exceed your expectations, and we can turn this into a franchise even. We entered into a contract, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to be totally transparent as I walk through these, because it's a learning experience. We all have learning experiences. The last thing I want to do is get on here and attempt to talk like I know everything. This was an extreme learning experience for me, because I say we entered into a contract. However, I did not cross all my T's and dot all my I's. What we did was, I was so excited about this venture that we did a series of proposals, and those proposals went back and forth so much that I was actually working. The time was of the essence so that this business did not close, and me bringing in my expertise, time was of the essence. So I actually, insert foot, started doing the work before we closed on everything, because this is something you don't do in business. I just trusted. So I started doing the work, and we were going back and forth about the proposals, but it was looking really good. We were collaborating. We were, working out things in fairness for one another. And by the time we did sign, I just had him sign, let's execute a proposal and get to it. I'll shoot it to my attorney and we'll get all the contracts and everything worked out. But we were already 2 weeks into it by the time we signed. So I said all that to say, I worked this contract, quote unquote, for 2 months. I knocked out every requirement and everything that I said that I would do. I boosted the sales. I attached my brand and my name to it. I brought in my team and we did some training, and I got the revenue up. And the moment the revenue was up, I got the boot. I got the boot. And I'm laughing about it now, but it was not a laughing matter because we are talking about a 6-figure contract. I was brought in for 90 days to knock out a project, and my reward was 6 figures at closing, plus commission for the duration of the lifetime of every other establishment that I opened for this individual. I had, speaking of going back to Emily of Paris, I had actually had a trip booked to Paris for my birthday. I was gonna go to Paris. I was gonna start traveling for a little bit. I was actually transitioning from my industry, my own brand of what I had spent the last 14 years of the beauty industry building. And now it was my time to just celebrate that and just revel in that. And I was going to travel and to kick it off. I was going to Paris for my birthday. I booked it, my stay, my venue, my travel, my, all of my activities, my itinerary, it was booked. And then this contract came up. And, of course, my thought process was, well, I can knock this out in 3 months and gain 6 figures plus a kickback commission off every establishment that I open. Paris can wait. I was like, I knock this out. I can go to Paris whenever I want to. I can fly to Paris tomorrow and come back next week and do it again after that. So I paused Paris and I took on this project, and this project required me to uproot myself. Well, not uproot myself. I didn't take up my roots, but I moved. I actually lived in one state in which I had just moved to 8 months prior to, and gotten established there. And now I had this opportunity with this project that instead of traveling back and forth for 90 days, we just surmised that, hey, it'll be a better idea if I just stay here. And so got a corporate apartment, furnished it, decorated it. I'm actually sitting in that corporate apartment now, which is now my studio. So, but I basically paused everything to pick this up. And for 2 months, I worked my tail off. I busted my butt. I did everything I was supposed to. And at some point, the dishonesty, the dishonesty of the individual that I had found myself, and I won't say entangled because I thank God that 2 months, yes, I was extremely disappointed. I was hurt. I was angry. But in retrospect, I am so grateful that I did not go longer and do more building and truly get entangled with this individual and end up wasting more of my time and my energy and my finances. So yes, 2 months and 6 figures out the window later, I was given the boot. I was cut off, and I was cut off because I started asking hard questions. I was doing all of the work. I was training. I was hiring. I was building, I was branding, I was showing up as the face of the brand, I was representing, I was executing. What do you call when you launch with the newspapers? Just publicizing. I was the publicist, press release, doing all of this stuff, marketing, and the revenue was coming in, but the feedback that I was getting, and I will say this, I actually had access to review the revenue. Like, we were in a good place. This is why I was so trusting, because I was not barred or banned from reviewing anything. Everything that I needed to see, I was given access to, even before, as I said, we were going back and forth with the proposal. I was given access to this. We were in a good place. I had no red flags or any reason to believe that this individual was not going to uphold their integrity, as we had discussed and as I did mine. So the numbers were going up. I had access to see that. I had access to this individual's company corporate cards to do what I needed to do. But in retrospect, there was always complaints about, where's the money going? It just doesn't seem like we're growing. It doesn't seem like you're doing your job. And for me, it was like, hold on, pump the brakes. What do you mean? What do you mean it doesn't seem like we're growing? I'm not doing my job. I'm literally spending 10, 12-hour days here. And so when those statements started to be made, I started to look a little deeper I started to ask the hard questions, like, look, we need to have a meeting. We need to sit down, stat. Everybody on your team, everybody on my team, we need to sit down and let's print up these numbers and let's talk about this line upon line and figure out where's it going, because I'm bringing in the revenue. So we had a meeting, and in that meeting, I asked the hard questions, like, okay, where's the money going? I have checked off and shown you everything of what I'm doing, and there's hardcore proof of it. Now you show me where the money's going. And when I started asking those questions, we finished up the meeting and everything. It was, I wouldn't even say it was an uncomfortable meeting. It was just a truthful meeting. And I'm very big on transparency in business. I've been an entrepreneur and I've been in business since I was in my early 20s, so well over 25 years. And I know what I'm doing. I don't know everything, but in my industry and in my lane, I know what I'm doing. And so I expressed that in this meeting. And it was after this meeting that the slow trickle to kicking me out, pushing me out, shutting me out happened. So going back to behind this smile and the day of this picture, I picked this picture because it was in the midst of me getting ripped off, essentially lied on, lied to, and shut out of something that I really poured my heart into. I mean, for me, when it comes to business, when it comes to purpose, when it comes to me putting my hands to anything, you can look at it like a relationship. And for me, any kind of relationship, a friendship, a marriage, a love type of relationship, I'm invested. I will not get involved unless I know that it's going to be beneficial and fruitful and I can invest into it. And so when it comes to business, I'm the same way. And this really was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking in the manner that it was done. It was, and let me tell you, heartbreaking was not the term I would use to begin with. It pissed me off to the 10th power. However, I will say, looking back on it, I was extremely calm about it. That does not take away from my humanity of feeling any emotions, hurt, anger, sadness. What's the other word? Not ashamed. I definitely wasn't ashamed, but I felt taken advantage of. The proper word escapes me right now, but I felt taken advantage of, and I felt silly. I felt stupid for moving so quickly and not lining up everything that I needed to contractually. And it's crazy because, I had sent the contract to two attorneys. It was in the transition of leaving one attorney services and finding another attorney that could accommodate the growth of where I was going. And so I sent it to my former attorney, attorney's office, and it was just lost in translation, which was the whole reason I was transitioning, because I'd outgrown the services I need from this attorney, and they were trying to work contracts for me, and it just wasn't his area of law, and it was just slowing down processes. And so the contract actually went to the attorney, but it was just a slow process for them, and I kept on trucking and working. Which the lesson in all of this is I will not lift a finger or move any mountains until the ink is dried on a contract and my money is in the bank. So very, very, very good. I was a huge learning lesson for me, one that I will never forget. And I heard someone say recently that we won't move on until we've learned the lesson from what we're going through. Baby, I learned my lesson, but it really was upsetting to me, and it really spiraled me. I was already in the midst of going through, no, I had already divorced. I had uprooted from one state after the divorce, well, prior to the divorce, actually. And I was healing. I was on a healing journey for my mental health and for my physical health. And I'd gotten into a place of really just, I had navigated and I was working on it, and I was proud of myself, and I had done something really huge for myself for the first time in my life. And I had just a really tumultuous year at the beginning of 2022, and coming out of 2022 on top of my health, on top of my mental health, my spiritual health, my physical health, I was feeling good. And then I roll into 2023 and it's like, bam, something else happened. And so I just started to beat myself up. And we're already, we as humans, we can tend to be our worst critics. And so I was already beating myself up. And then of course, the naysayers, the gossipers, the enemy in our head trying to tell us, we're already doing a knockdown job on ourselves, but then you got all this other stuff, all these other factors. And I just could not understand how I had worked so hard and something so potentially purposeful and good had gone awry so quickly. And I had traveled back from, this was in Georgia on the East Coast, and I traveled back to Tennessee where I actually lived. Remember, I said I picked up and I moved to another state to take on this project. And so I sort of licked my wounds and I went home back to Tennessee, and a culmination of things happened. I had put so much effort and energy into this project. Not necessarily my own money, but my time, and my time is money with what I do. So shifting my time to something else had taken time, which cost. And so I felt the impact of that when I got back to Tennessee, when I got back to Knoxville. So you add that feeling of guilt and lack of self-worth and poor judgment to the fact that, oh, now you've kind of financially put yourself in a little bit of a bind here also. You have 2 months of setback because you were going to go to Paris for a month. That was already taken care of, but you didn't work on anything else that you had purposed to work on for 2 months. And so that was a setback for 2 months. I didn't get that 6-figure income that I'd been promised. And I also had paused not only Paris, but the things that God had planned for me, the other projects and things that I wanted to work on personally. So now you have 2 months of this gap, and all of that hit me. It hit me. Um, in the midst of this, as I've talked about, you'll hear me talk about on other episodes, not only was I dealing with healing from a divorce, but I also was dealing with my ex-husband not allowing me to move on from that, who was continually inserting himself into my life uh, via stalking. And um, it just was a lot to handle. It was a lot to handle. And this day, behind this smile, was a woman who was really stressed, depressed. I was digressed, and I just really was having a difficult time. Like, I literally remember I have these amazing views, these huge, like 14 feet tall window in my loft. I mean, they line the entire loft. It's like my complete safe space. I love it. It's so girly, so Sex in the City, Carrie Bradshaw. And it's just my safe space. And I have a couch, this huge leather couch. And I remember day in and day out just sitting on that couch. Like, I would go to sleep, and then I would wake up, and I would go sit on the corner of that couch, and I'd flip the TV on, and I just would watch TV all day long. I don't even remember what, mindless TV. It wasn't productive. And then I would watch TV until the late evening, until I was exhausted, and I would go get in the bed, and I would go to sleep, and I would wake up, and I would do it all over again. In the midst of this, I showered, I brushed my teeth. And I remember I door dashed. Like, I would order Instacart or DoorDash. Like, I would not leave my house, is the point. I just literally slept and ate and slept and watched TV. And I recall, I think at this point, I wasn't binge watching the crime TV. I'm a huge fan of crime TV. I talk about this before. I love the forensics of it all. And I seem to relate or equate some things that go on in my life. I'm drawn to watching things like that because I like to study it. When I was really going down this hole of the whole stalking situation, I just consumed nonstop consuming of documentaries and docuseries and programs, fiction and nonfiction. Like, I wanted to study it, to understand it. So during this season, when I was dealing with the business thing, I think I was probably consuming documentaries on that, like companies that grew their brand and someone ripped them off. Like the McDonald's, I remember watching that, the McDonald's movie. I've seen it before, but for some reason it came up in my feeds, probably because, these smart TVs, these smartphones, they listen and they watch. And so that movie, I think it's called The Founder, about the story about the McDonald's brand. It's absolutely heartbreaking. If you have never seen it, and you're interested in that kind of thing, or you're an entrepreneur, watch it. You're going to be crying. Get your Kleenex. I cried because I just don't understand why some people in this world are so horrible. That's one of the things I feel like God, you call me to entrepreneurship. Like, I'm an amazing entrepreneur. I believe that about myself. But let me tell you, I feel like so many days, I'm like, my heart and my brain, I'm not cut out for this. Like, I won't say you have to be cutthroat in entrepreneurship, but you have to be cutthroat in entrepreneurship. And you can do it clean. I've done it clean. I know there's many that do it clean and have done it clean, but there are so many that don't do it clean. And as a believer, as a Christian, I can't stay in the box in a corner in my little pocket and go, I'm just going to be a Christian business, and I'm not going to, not on the level of what God has called me to. Now, I'm not knocking anyone that you've got your calling, you are doing what God has called you to do, and it's growing in the manner that you're happy with. But the level of scale, of vision, of dreams that God has given me, it's not sit in the corner and just be the quiet little hush mouth Christian. I have to interact with the world. We just do. And I'm not cutthroat. I'm not a punk. You're not going to walk all over me and say and do anything that you want to, not in that sense of the term, but I'm just not undermining. I'm not devious. I believe in pulling people up with me, and just everybody's not like that. A lot of people are intimidated. A lot of people, they just don't like your success, and I've seen so much of that over the years. So anyway, I was watching The Founder, and that is just, it's like a heartbreaking love story. It's not even a love story, but if you get business, you're like, it's like a love story. Because again, like I said, when I do business, it's like a relationship. And so watching that movie where these two brothers, the McDonald brothers, they had a vision, they had a dream, they were ahead of their time. And then you got this little weasel who comes in. I don't remember his name, but he comes in and he basically steals it from under their feet, and he steals their name from them. And I watched that during this whole process of me feeling like I was punked with this contract. And so I was just in this state of depression, and you'll hear me talk about that consistently because depression is something that I deal with. I will not say it's something I've dealt with, past tense, LT, dealt. It is something that I deal with consistently and constantly. Is it something that I'm going to allow to overtake me? Absolutely not. It's not anything that I'm claiming. It's not anything that I feel like I can't overcome. It is something that I just deal with, and it is something that I am learning to deal with well. I remember my therapist saying to me some years ago when I finally got into therapy, she gave me a title to what I was feeling. And she looked at my history, as we'll learn here on Behind This Smile, the amount of things that I've gone through. And she says, Takiya, the amount of trauma that you've dealt with, and that was 4 or 5 years ago. Like, we got a whole lot more trauma to talk about on this show. But the amount of trauma, the things you've gone through in your past, from your childhood, your teenage years, your young adult years, why would you not have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder? You've never been allowed to stop and take the time to deal with it and process it. So I deal with it, and different situations and different things, including because I'm going to talk about my faith freely here as well. But like I said before, and I'll say it again, and I'll continue to say it, I'm going to speak in a language and a dialect that everyone can understand, not just to a specific demographic, not to just a specific sect, SECT, not to just a specific group of people or faith. All of us in our humanity deal with emotions. Not all of us deal with depression. I've said it before, there's a difference between sadness and depression, but I'm here to give voice to my experience. I cannot even tell you how hard it was today, just sitting in the safety and sanctity of my own home, my living room turned recording studio, how difficult it was for me to just even sit down and take the time to record this. I'm having some technical difficulties. How difficult it was for me to just sit down in my own home, in my living room, with absolutely not a soul here except for me, God the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and my dog. It was nerve-wracking because I've been through a lot and I'm now being told to talk about it. I've been giving my marching orders and I have to do what I'm told to do. But I'm doing it because I know if I'm told to do it, there's not just one, there's not just two, there's not just three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, hundreds, or thousands. There are many who need to hear what I have to say. There are many that won't relate to it. This isn't their thing. That's fine. But I'm here to yield and give my voice in obedience to share the trials and the triumphs behind this smile. I was watching a documentary last night, Maxine's Baby by Tyler Perry. And he said, he always says such profound things. I catch little nuggets from him from time to time. But he said, people's destinies are tied up in your dreams. And that was my call to action because I've heard it said like that in so many ways, so many times. And it always impacts me in that way. It usually draws me to tears because I am so passionate about what I do. I'm passionate about my faith, about my God. And I'm passionate about my purpose here on earth because, see, for me, without purpose, I feel like I am nothing. I feel like, why am I here? And that is why the depression and the battle sets in. So in sharing this, in hearing that last night, just before doing this today, I've gotten so much affirmation and so many things leading up to this to call me to step out of the fear, to step out of the angst, to step out of the worry, to step out of the what will people think, what will they say, you know, I have to do this. And that was a call to action from watching that documentary and hearing him say that because, you know, people might say, why talk? Why share your story? I actually recall someone, a close friend of mine, very, very close friend. I love her to the moon and back. I love her to life. But she said, you know, maybe I can't understand, you know, why you post things on social media or why you talk about your life. That's just not my thing. I don't have to do that. And I remember thinking, no, you don't have to do it, but I do. Like it's not optional for me. It's a part of my calling. It's a part of the demand that's on my life. It's a part of the ministry that God has placed in me. It's a part of the tests that have become major testimonies. It's a part of every bit of who and why I am. And I'm just not going to gain rest until I start speaking up. So behind the smile today is the story of the time I was really stressed out. I was really angry. I was really frustrated. And I felt really, I don't know why the word escapes me. Ashamed is the word I keep hearing. And I don't know, when I process that, I'm like, did I feel ashamed? Maybe it's not in the sense of how I'm thinking, but it's the word that keeps coming up. So I'm just going to go with that. I felt ashamed. Maybe that's what somebody out here listening needs to hear today. Maybe you feel ashamed because of some of your choices. Maybe you feel ashamed because of a decision that you made that you may or may not have been in control of. It may have been a result of your actions, and it may not have been a result of your actions. The contract not being honored was not a result of my actions. Now, like I said, I can take accountability and go, I should have made sure I had A, B, C, and D in place. But the lack of honesty and integrity, that wasn't my fault. And so I want to leave you with that today, that behind the guilt, behind the shame, behind the hurt, behind the frustration, behind the disappointment, it's okay. It's okay. Even if every bit of it was your doing, your fault, your reasoning, your rationale or irrationality, it's okay. Because that moment, it didn't and doesn't define who you are. Look at it. This was back in May. This is now December. We're going into 2024. It is the last week of December. And I'm up. I'm recording a podcast. I'm sitting in the apartment that was the place where I was supposed, let me tell you guys, if I walk out on my balcony, I could see the business that I branded and helped keep the doors of that close. Can you imagine having to every day? But I couldn't stay stuck in that place. I couldn't stay stuck in that place. Let me give you one of my favorite scriptures. It's Romans, oh Lord, why does the thought escape? 8:26, I believe. I will go back and I will check that. But it says, all things work together for good to them that love the Lord. Listen to that. All things. All things, okay? When you think about all things, the word all is encompassing. It means everything. All things. All things. Nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing lacking. Every bit of what you endured, what you went through, what they said, what they did, all of that, God can take it and put it together and use it for your good. Another one of my scriptures that I use that piggybacks off of that is what the enemy meant for bad, God turned it around for good. Come on. I'm sitting in the apartment where I could walk out on the balcony and see the very business that stiffed me out of six figures. And I'm sitting in this apartment and I've converted it into my recording studio. This isn't my home. I live in Tennessee, remember? I've got a beautiful place in Tennessee. I come here when I need to work or I've invited friends to vacation. I'm sitting in this space and this is my recording studio. What the enemy meant for bad, God will turn it around for your good. There's another scripture God just gave me to piggyback off of that. He said, I will make your enemies your footstool. I prepare a table in the presence of your enemies for you. All right, so remember I said steps away is the balcony? I could lean over that balcony and see it. He says, Takiya, you in their presence. I prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. So much other stuff has happened in the fact of him just putting me in this space, and we'll talk about it. But I want to leave you with that. I want to sign off on a good note. And so I got dressed up. I'm about to forget the whole picture. I'm smiling in that picture. That day I determined and I purposed, I'm going to get up. I'm going to dress up. I might not be going anywhere, and did it. Remember, couch, bed, couch, Instacart, DoorDash, bring me food, please. Leave it at the door. Don't talk to me. Don't look at me. Bye-bye. But I said, I need to get up. I don't feel like it. I don't want to. I ain't gonna. A good friend of mine always says that to me, and I love it. But I need to shake this off of myself, even if it's just for today. I'm going to get up. I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to put my makeup on. I'm going to throw on the baddest pair of stilettos I got in my closet. I'm going to pull out that dress that I bought that reminds me of that episode of Emily in Paris where I was supposed to be earlier this year. And I did. And I felt so good. And I remember filming myself and taping myself and snapping pictures. And I remember I was on the phone with my bestie and we were talking, and whatever she said had me cracking up. And I captured those moments behind this smile.